こっち見てから一人で外出て。
なんでそれが合図になるんだよ。
普通そう思うだろ。てか、あがた祭り。
あれね。
予定あった。
ごめん、私この子と行くことにしてて。
え？高坂と？
You know, at this point in my quest to make a video on every Kyoto animation show ever made, I feel like we've reached a bit of a downturn. Sure, works like Beyond the Boundary and Tomoko Market are great, but they aren't the first shows that come to mind when I think about their heaviest hitters. And as much as I love Lucky Star, I can recognize how niche it is. It's been a while since I've made a video about a show that I'm sure most of the people watching have already seen, and I wanted to change this for my next project. So without further ado, say hello to the best thing KyoAni has made in the last 9 years. Hibike Euphonium is the story of the wind ensemble at Kitauji High School. According to our main character, Kumiko Omai, who's been doing this kind of thing for years, the band is awful, which does not bode well for their future. You've got people who flub notes during rehearsal and then joke about it with their friends, a president who doesn't even want to be president, and people who straight up won't practice due to drama from last year. They say they want to compete in nationals, but they're unwilling to put in the work to make it happen. In comes Noboru Taki, an exceptional music teacher who graces Kitauji with his presence. Getting this guy to coach these dorks is like getting Vince Lombardi to coach the 2008 Detroit Lions, who, for context, were really bad. Through his guidance, the ensemble develops into a respectable group of musicians, and as you observe their growth, you should find yourself getting sucked into their world for one very simple reason. I talk a lot about Kyoto Animation's attention to detail in these videos. Paragraphs and paragraphs of text raving about the beautiful worlds they build that somehow mirror ours to a T. World building is always an important part of storytelling, even if the story takes place in real life. Every little detail combines to make this place feel lived in and believable. No other studio does this better than KyoAni, and I think that out of all of their works, Hibike is the finest example of this. If you participated in club activities at school, this is what you did. You are going to feel every single emotion you felt during that time all over again. The camaraderie, the drama, the sense of fulfillment that your activity of choice gave you. It's down to the point where just hearing characters say familiar phrases brings back memories. You've got one kid complaining about how late their homework kept them up. You've got people gossiping about someone who isn't there to fight back. And of course, once everyone gets their practice schedules, you hear a collective, "What the f***, dude, we have to wake up at 5? With such a large cast of diverse characters, at least one of them is going to be tailor-made to your own experiences. Here, I'll give you a real example, just give me a second. So, did you participate in any clubs in high school?
No.
So you participated in club activities during high school, right?
Yeah.
Could you very briefly describe your time there?
It's very fun, unless you're doing some sort of leadership role, then it sucks. For example, I was a co-leader of my school's anime club for a year, and it really sucked because I had one other co-leader that was never there. She legit did fucking nothing. She was only there because she was the little sister of the former president of the anime club, when that was kind of frustrating.
Gotcha. Alright, so a reluctant club president who has issues with wrangling their vice president but does their best to succeed anyways. His story matches Haruka's 1 for 1, and I promise you I didn't script that at all. Go ahead and try this for yourself. I guarantee you'll find someone who you can relate to. Also, as a bonus, I really found myself relating to Natsuki because she's too cool for school and the best character in the show. It feels like life goes on for these characters characters even when they're off screen because the way they move and speak is so true to life. And because they're so believable, it's easy to get lost in their stories. The drawn out intro to episode 13 of season 1 is one of my favorite moments in the show. The ensemble is preparing for a preliminary competition where it will be decided whether or not they're moving on to regionals. After months of preparation, those who have stayed with the group are all serious about pursuing nationals, and this is the first step. It's the morning of the competition. They're nervous, they're excited, and the entire first half of the episode is dedicated to exploring these emotions. They're making small talk, nudging each other in the arm, practicing their pieces in mid-air, re-bandaging fingers they've injured while practicing, taking deep breaths, giving encouraging speeches. They're doing anything they can to deal with the anxiety, and I love it. Today is a day that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives, and great care was taken to capture that feeling and deliver it to the viewer. Another detail that they absolutely nailed was the composition of the music in this show. I don't know anything about this kind of music, but from what I've been told, the fingering of the instruments is one-to-one with whatever piece a character is playing. And even more impressively, whenever Taki or one of the other characters criticizes someone's playing, the mistakes they supposedly made are things that you can hear in their performance yourself if you've got the ear for it. They even thought to tell the ensemble who performed this show's music to intentionally mess up when necessary. That is insane to me. And by the way, the music is so good in this show. I love so many tracks from this soundtrack that every single episode I found myself thinking, oh, it's this song. I love this song. Hibike is one of those shows where I get really excited to go through the OST to pick songs for its video. But if there's one thing I like even more than the music, it's the characters. They all have the presence and charisma you'd expect from a KyoAni cast, complete with witty humor. Take this scene where Natsuki invites Kumiko out right after losing her spot in the ensemble tour. Kumiko's dealt with overthrowing someone older than her before in middle school, and it didn't end well, so she's terrified of what Natsuki's going to say. Nervous tension is building. Natsuki sits down and makes some small talk to wind the audience up before throwing this haymaker.
ああ、オーディション落ちてしまった。
There are admittedly a few rough patches though. I thought Yuko was pretty annoying. Shuichi could have been developed much better, and I can only watch so much of Reina having awkward interactions with Taki until my soul melts out of my asshole. But I'm more than willing to look past all this stuff, because Hibike has characters like Kumiko. Kumiko is, for lack of a better term, a normal person. She's passive, she doesn't have any lofty ambitions, and she plays the soft-spoken Euphonium. She is not the kind of person you think of when you envision a main protagonist. Compare this to her best friend Reina. She's determined to be special and does whatever it takes to accomplish her goals. She plays the trumpet, an instrument so loud and abrasive that it commands the attention of anyone who hears it. Reina would be the main character in any other story, but not this one. Instead of the person who's actively trying to be special, the starring role goes to Little Miss Unremarkable here, and it's perfect. Kumiko has her own struggles to deal with, don't get me wrong, and we'll be covering those later down the line, but for the majority of the show, the main source of drama comes from the other members of the ensemble. Saito, Haruka, Natsuki, Yuko, Hazuki, Reina, Mizore, Nozomi, and Asuka are just a few characters I can think of off the top of my head whose personal problems are pushed to the forefront in some form or another. And Kumiko is always there during all of them, trying to learn what she can do in order to help. She's deceptively perceptive and easy to talk to, making her the go-to person for this kind of thing, even if she doesn't have any personal stake in the drama. Sure, the things she says sometimes can ruin your day because she doesn't have a filter, but that's what makes her so genuine, or as Reina puts it, captivating. She's the only person who could believably involve herself in the lives of so many others, and that's why she's the main character of this show. And speaking of the lives of others, it's worth mentioning that there are points in this show where the drama gets to be a little too over the top. Hibike is extremely committed to telling grounded stories, so when melodrama rears its ugly head, it can be pretty distracting. Take this moment where Nozomi tries to talk to Mizore for the first time in years. Mizore has been avoiding her for reasons we don't know yet, so it's safe to say that this interaction isn't going to go very well. The camera cuts away as you hear Nozomi yell Mizore's name. Her music stand crashes to the ground and she barrels through the hallway with her eyes glued to the floor. Yuko stops Nozomi from running after her and then screams at Natsuki when she asks what Nozomi did wrong. Everybody regroups and starts searching for her because, quote, if she runs into someone she doesn't know, she might lose it. Kumiko is sprinting through the halls as dramatic flashbacks play with haunting music behind them. Yuko has her hands on her knees with gallons of sweat dripping off of her face after running around for what couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. This is the end of the world, and yet somehow Hibike always brings things back with these slow, intimate moments. Right after the sun explodes, we see Yuko confront Mizore about her obsession with Nozomi, leading to the two of them rectifying their misunderstanding. There isn't much to say about this scene other than the emotions come from a genuine place and they feel real, which is what I've been saying for this entire video. The reason why I've been going so nuts about realism is because I believe it's the best thing about this show. It's the key feature that makes it stand out from the rest of the pack. Even other KyoAni titans like Keion, which nailed every little detail, don't hold a candle to Hibike in this department. And with this being its greatest strength, it only makes sense that its overall message hits closer to home than most could ever hope to. Hibike devotes a lot of time to asking each character why they play in the ensemble. It makes sense to do so when you have characters like Kumiko who go from wanting nothing to do with it in the beginning to it being one of the most important things in her life. She devoted a lot of her childhood to the Euphonium because she wanted to follow in her sister's footsteps, but her ambitions came to a halt in middle school at the end of her run to nationals. Not because her school didn't qualify, but because of what she said to Reina. Everybody is cheering over getting a dud gold, while Reina has her head buried in her arms crying, as she's the only person here with a real drive to succeed. The failure to move on to the next stage in the competition is soul-crushing, but what hurts even more is the fact that she's the only one who seems to care. That's when Kumiko, in her infinite wisdom, asks her, did you really think we could make it to nationals? Now, if I fucked up that bad, I think I would also pick some obscure high school nobody I know is going to in order to have a fresh start. But as fate would have it, Reina went to this school because she knew Taki was an instructor, and Kumiko gets stuck with playing the Euphonium yet again. High school is officially a wash now, right? So then explain why 10 episodes later we see Kumiko sprinting through the streets with tears in her eyes repeating the same 4-word phrase. This outburst came out of frustration from not being able to perform a specific part of a competition piece properly. She knows how it's supposed to sound, she can reproduce it in her head perfectly, but when the time comes to play, it's all wrong. With a strict deadline and all eyes on her, it's a wonder why she's still trying. She didn't even want to play the Euphonium again when she entered high school. Her older sister quit playing music when she went to college to focus on her studies, and one of her friends did the same thing. Her teachers and parents constantly remind her that she's spending too much time on club and not enough time on her studies. And yet, here she is, diligently failing over and over again to play this one little part. After yelling on the street, she makes her way home and lies down on her bed as Mamiko walks into her room. She gets on her case for spending too much time on the Euphonium too, and when Kumiko dismisses her, she demands for a reason. This is when Kumiko stands up and utters my favorite line from the show, completely shutting her sister down.
だって、私、UFO 好きだもん。は？私、UFO が好きだもん。へえ、偉いね。
It's something so innocuous that I was initially surprised by how much I took to it. But after giving it some thought, I think I have a pretty good idea of why this quote means so much to me. Over the years, I've gotten into a lot of things. I played sports for a long time, mostly football, which ended in high school. I spent years doing art stuff. I joined a cybersecurity club where I learned that coding is boring. I single-handedly revived my school's chess club with my friends when its only other member graduated.
Yes, I was in the chess club.
I even played Smash Ultimate on behalf of my college for some reason. And when I look back at all of these things, I always find it hard to justify the time that I spent. Nothing came of any of these activities. They didn't advance my career, they didn't open any doors. They were just things that I did. I guess I'm a bad learner too, given that I'm sitting here today pouring hundreds of hours of my life into something that is, realistically speaking, doomed to fail. I know my time will be better spent elsewhere, and I know that the amount of importance I give to this is misplaced, yet here I am. Why? You already know why.
私 UFO が好きだ
It's so simple, it's so obvious, and it's the first thing I always forget when I find myself questioning the activities I dedicate myself to. This is why Hibike's message is so special to me. It reminds me why I pick up a mouse and keyboard the same way these characters pick up their instruments every single day. So long as I enjoy the things I do, I'm never going to stop. No exceptions. And believe it or not, Hibike isn't even done yet. You know why you play now, but knowing is only half the battle. The final episodes of this show will sum up your new goal to pursue in just 2 words. No regrets. And for Kumiko, no regrets means dealing with the 2 most difficult people in her life right now, Mamiko and Asuka. Mamiko was the one who told Kumiko to finish out the year without any regrets, and she's taking her own advice by moving out of the house to pursue her dream job in the beauty industry. She tells Kumiko that she won't be seeing her around much after she leaves, and despite the nonchalant response Kumiko gives back to her, this prospect causes her to break down on the public transit. That awful, gut-wrenching feeling of not saying what was on her mind in the moment hits her hard, making her the best possible person to help a member in the ensemble who's about to experience the same feeling. Asuka is Kumiko's final boss. Everything about her outward appearance is a facade, making her the only person Kumiko has a hard time reading. She's looked at as this perfect person by everyone in the ensemble. She doesn't have any flaws. Sure, you have people like Reina who are trying to become special, but Asuka is special. She's Kumiko's polar opposite. Loud, obnoxious, and completely disconnected from the affairs of the other members of the band. Kumiko grew to hate her because of these traits. But then Asuka's personal problems were shoved to the forefront of everyone's minds as her mother forced her to withdraw from the ensemble right before nationals. Kumiko gets involved because of course she does, and Asuka takes the opportunity to mess with her. She thinks that she knows Kumiko inside and out. She's seen her deal with these kinds of situations time and time again, so she shares all the details she wants, assuming that she'll never attempt to get close to her. This includes performing a piece written by her father, a famous Euphonium player who left the family while Asuka was young, and a man who just so happens to be a judge at nationals. The piece itself is a jaw-dropping display that goes against everything the show has told us about the Euphonium. This whole time, it's just been the support instrument, the thing you hear in the background that lifts up everything else. It doesn't have a voice of its own. Asuka likes to say that Kumiko is just like a euphonium. She constantly goes out of her way to support others, but that's all she does. She doesn't speak up for herself, and she doesn't get any closer to others than she needs to. But this piece shatters that entire image. This passive little instrument now commands more presence than any other instrument in the show, blowing the audience away with its warm, beautiful melody. Whenever I heard an instrument being played individually in this show, I never thought they sounded very good, especially the euphonium. Characters would comment about how great the performance was, and I would just sit back and shrug because I didn't get it. But this I understand. This is is powerful enough to drive somebody to tears. This oversized, overlooked, underperforming instrument found its voice, perfectly foreshadowing Kumiko doing the same. Because thanks to her sister, she isn't walking away from this year with any regrets. She knows how much Asuka wants to perform at nationals. She wants to show her father how much she's grown. And as far as Kumiko knows, she's actively throwing that all away just so she isn't a bother to anyone else. She confronts Asuka and tells her that everybody wants her to rejoin the ensemble, but she fires back by asking who everybody is and if she can give specific examples. She knows Kumiko's game. She won't overstep any boundaries, so she's just going to throw out vague statements about how everyone misses her, but Kumiko has changed. She yells after her that she wants to perform on stage with her, that she's the one who doesn't want her to leave. And when Asuka tells her she's acting like a child, she shoots her down by asking what's wrong with that. Asuka is a high school student, just like everyone else. She's not an adult, she's not special, she's just a kid who's giving up and pretending it's for the best. Kumiko bears everything to her, completely exceeding her expectations, which is why the following moments are the only time in the entire show where we see Asuka being emotionally vulnerable. She intended to come back to the ensemble the entire time by striking a deal with her mother. She was just screwing with Kumiko because that's the kind of person she is, and she got this in return. The final scene between these two at the end of the show is a testament to just how much Kumiko has grown since it began. Graduation is over, and it's likely that Asuka is never going to step into the Kitauji music room ever again. And it's here where this fly on the wall clearly and confidently proclaims her genuine affection for this annoying yet wonderful person. She ensures that she leaves this year behind with no regrets, and in return, Asuka gives Kumiko her father's notebook containing that piece I mentioned earlier. Then both Kumiko and the audience finally learn its name, Hibike Euphonium, because these writers are maniacs. I'm sure that by this point you're all thinking about how exhausting it's been hearing me go bananas over this show, but I'm afraid that I'm far from done with it. As I'm sure many of you know, there are two big pieces of content that I left out of this video, both of which I'll be covering later down the road. I doubt it'll turn out exactly as you'd expect, so that should be pretty exciting. And as for this show, what else is there for me to say? The fantastic way in which it builds its world, the amazing storytelling, the wonderful way in which characters develop, it's just good. Hibike Euphonium, like a great performance, will always leave you wanting more.